Good morning, how are you all today? I am making today, it is mine and Simon's anniversary, and I am going to make some meatloaf. I'm just going to chop up these veggies because meatloaf has green pepper, onion and celery. Meatloaf is a dish that not a lot of English people cook, but obviously being my dad was American, we have a lot of dishes that my dad and my mum, because she lived out in America for quite a few years, she used to make a lot for us at home. And being as we were such a large family, a couple of blocks of mince with extra fillings and stuff went a long way, so I think it was quite an economical dish and everyone loved it, and there was normally some left over. You could have a meatloaf sandwich or what have you the following day. Now meatloaf, like I say, it's quite an economical dish to cook because it is made from mince. Now I've since looked, because my mum used to get a thing called a meatloaf seasoning pack, which was, it was just like a packet seasoning that you used to get from the Air Force Base, and it would have seasonings in it and stuff, and she would always add that in with the meatloaf and it always tasted yummy. Right, so that's all the green pepper. I'm just going to put this in this plastic bowl here for a minute, because what I do is I saute all these vegetables off first. Yeah, and when I obviously we couldn't get these meatloaf seasonings anymore from the base, I suddenly thought, oh, what am I going to do? And I just basically went to the website and looked at the ingredients of these packet mixes, and they just basically had your usual sort of seasonings. Like you know, celery, salt, garlic granules, onion salt, things like that, cumin, different herbs and what have you. I'm just going to wash this quickly. Like I said, you don't want huge great big chunks of celery and green pepper and stuff in your meatloaf, so what I do is I cut it in half like that, and then just finely dice it. Now, when I was younger, I used to absolutely hate celery, the smell of it, the taste of it and everything, and my mum would, like I say, she'd always put it in things like meatloaf, and it wasn't too bad in meatloaf because it used to dissolve and you wouldn't even really know, like I say, it was in there, and it was diced up quite small. But she used to put it in like casseroles and soups and stuff, and as soon as I come in from school I'd walk up and go, oh, what's for tea? And she'd go, oh, there's a casserole, and I'd look and I'd go, that's got celery in it, and she'd start laughing. She'd go, no it's not, like that, and I'd go, yes it has, I can, and she's like, how can you tell? And I was like, I can smell it, and I didn't like it, and so I used to always pull it out. But as I've got older, I absolutely love celery now. I love the smell, it's so fresh. I still don't eat it really sort of just like this raw. It's weird, I love the smell of it now, and it just adds so much flavour to things. Soups and stews, I love it. If I do like a pasta sauce, I stick a can of tomatoes, like in I've got a what's it called, a magic bullet, you know, a blitzer, and I stick a can of tomatoes in there with a couple of sticks of celery and some carrots and onion, and just blitz it up, and you've got a wonderful pasta sauce with loads of extra veg and goodness in it, and you just throw it on a bit of pasta. And to be honest with you, some of these sauces, once you've thrown in a bit of garlic and onion and some Italian seasonings and stuff, why would you go and buy a pre-made sauce? I just don't understand it. And the price of a cheap tin of tomatoes is like about 18p, and then you buy a little bit of veg, and it's so good. And if you have kids and stuff, why would you want to make anything else? So I'm always one for using fresh veggies and stuff in my sauces. I never, if you look in my cupboard, you won't see any type of pasta sauce. All you see is oh, actually, tell a lie, I buy pesto because I like pesto, and I don't really make my own pesto. I should do. Right, so that's that. I'm just going to throw in an onion with that as well. And then what I will do is I will saute these veggies off, so that they just soften and go a bit translucent, and then I will add them to the meat, and then I'll go through all the stuff that I put in with the meat. Now the meat I'm using today is it's a pack that I get from Lidl's, and it's actually pork and beef mince. It's like, I don't know, it's like 50-50 or 40-60. I think it's more beef mince than it is pork mince. But it's quite cheap, and it says like for bologneses and things like that, but it's it does have a bit of fat in it, but I think you have to have a bit of fat to have the lovely flavour and stuff. So yeah, this is a tiny little onion. This is, so just finely dice this if you can, and then like I say, add that to the mixture. I do add onion granules, so I'm getting a slight oniony flavour, and I just want a little bit of bite, so that's why I don't have huge amounts of onion in the actual dish compared to celery and green pepper and stuff. And this is quite, as you can see, this will be, when you see the mince and stuff, I make quite a large meatloaf because then we always have enough left over for meatloaf sandwiches or another meal the following day or a day or two later. And because today's our anniversary, I thought, well, I'll make a nice meal for Simon when he gets in. And we haven't had a meatloaf for ages, and so I thought, fancy a meatloaf, we'd do that. So that's the mixture: onion, celery and green pepper. Now I make my own stewed tomatoes, and again, this is an American thing that you have stewed tomatoes, and you just use a tin of plum tomatoes. So I would fry this off, and then I would add about 4 tins of plum tomatoes, and I don't chop the tomatoes up, but I just run a knife through them just to, I don't chop them finely is what I'm saying, so they've still got quite big chunks of tomatoes in there, and basically just leave it on the stove low for quite a while, just simmering, and it basically, all this flavour from this goes into the tomatoes, and I do add celery, salt and other stuff into it as well. Yeah, so these are getting to the point now where they're going translucent, and I will just add a little bit of seasoning, so a little bit of pepper, and a little bit of salt. also add a tad of water. The smell of this now, if you just smell it, it's lovely. Right, so they are cooking and they are pretty much done. I don't want to overcook them too much because you still want a little bit of bite in with the when I have them in the meatloaf mixture. If you can still hear me. Right, so I'm going to turn them off now. Right, so there's the mince. Obviously very clean hands. Make sure that they're all washed and cleaned, which I've just done with mine. Made sure I cleaned all under my nails. And you just get your hands in and give it a good smash. Now, my mum used to put, and it sounds weird, but she used to put cornflakes in, and she used to put sometimes bread, but it would all be minced up in like the blender, and that would be like a filler and a binder. And also I've seen on recipes where you put egg in and stuff as well. Now, if you see mince, it's always like that. Sometimes you can just mix it up and put it in a meat shape and away it goes. But I find when you do that, it tends to fall apart. What you really need to do, and I got this from an Italian guy who was making Italian sausage and chorizo, and he said you really have to mince it up. And if you see, when I mince it up loads with your hand, it goes almost like a sausage meat consistency. If you know what sausage meat's like, you really have to get in and mince it up and squidge it loads. And the more you do that, it sounds weird, but the more you do that, it stays like a loaf. It stays in that shape when you put it in the tin, and it doesn't, when you cut it, it doesn't fall apart. You don't need any binders or anything else like that, like bread. Now, if you were economising, excuse me, you can use 1 pack of mince, and you can put like bread crumbs and other stuff in it. But again, just make sure that you do all this with it once you've done that. Now, I am just going to add the veggies in, which I sautéed off, which are still slightly warm. But if you had longer time to let them cool, that's fine. It doesn't really make much difference, it's just when you get your hands in there and squidge them all up. Right, so in my moccahete, which is a pestle and mortar, which is my lovely dad's one that my mum and dad used to use a lot, and mum since said I could use. I'm going to put some fennel seeds, and I love the taste of fennel in with it. Bit of celery salt again. And they call it celery salt, but it's not actually, I don't think it's actually real salt. Onion granules and some garlic. Now, I do use garlic, real garlic, in a lot of things, but in things like meatloaf and stuff, I use garlic granules, and the reason being is because it gets right into the meat. If you use fresh garlic, it's kind of, you know, chopped. It doesn't, the flavour doesn't, I don't find permeate into the meat as much. If you could hear me over the top of me grinding. Now those seeds are broken up. Fennel seeds, I don't know if you know about fennel seeds, they are a slight aniseedy flavour. But it don't think, oh god, Pernod or anything like that. It's just a slight hint in the back, and it's lovely in meatloaf. So I'm just going to add those. It's not a huge amount there. Now I also like a little bit of spice. Chipotle has the most wonderful smoky flavour, so I like a little bit of that kick in there with it as well. So we just add a teaspoon of that. And these are just fresh ground chilies that they're like lazy chilies that I have in the fridge, and I like adding like a half teaspoon, would you say that is, in there with that as well. So this is the tin that I use. Like I say, it's like a loafy tin. I think it was like a canteen tin used in a cafeteria, but it's quite a big old tin. It makes a good loaf of bread, and it also makes a huge loaf of meatloaf. Now the other one thing that I haven't put in yet, which I'm about to do, is a little tiny splash of milk. And I don't know why, but when I've watched YouTube videos, like I say, a lot of people use egg, they use this, they use that, they use binders. This one, you literally put a splash of milk, about that much, and that's it. And I do think that I'm going to have to get in with my hands again. Let me just leave that sitting there for a second. It does seem quite moist, but when you cook it, and like I say, you really get in there and squidgle that. This is what really helps keep it all together and bound nice. So all that goes in there, and there's no need to rub any oil or anything on this pan. Dollop it in, scrape that bowl out, and then just push it down into the sides. And like I say, this just is enough with those 2 packets that I use. It looks like huge amounts, and it is quite a lot, but this does shrink back a bit when it, like I say, because you buy the slightly cheaper mince, and we've all got budgets at the moment. You buy the slightly cheaper mince and it goes a bit further. So that's that. So my hands are all washed. Now what I do is I put this lid on, not that way because it was squidged down. I put it on upside down and put it in the oven. Set a yummy meatloaf timer for 1 hour.
Yummy meatloaf timer, 1 hour, starting now. Your yummy meatloaf timer is up.
So I'm just taking the meatloaf out of the oven and to check it, and there will be a lot of grease in here because, like I said, it does reduce quite a bit. Right, just pour some of this juices off. Like I said, there are loads. I think it's because it's got pork mince in it, but some of this juice, it's not all fat, it's just a lot of juices and flavour that comes out of that as well. For the glaze, I use this Tennessee barbecue style sauce, which is quite nice, that you get from, I get this from Lidl's, and I'll just pour it over the top, and then I'll just get a little spoon and just give it a nice even glaze. You might want a little bit more. I like it dribbling down the sides. I like it really glazed. And then also, when you put this in, now without the lid on, that goes nice and crispy and starts to brown off. Right, so that's it now. It's back in the oven. The whole house just smells delicious of meatloaf. I'll give it another 30 minutes with that glaze on top, and it will go nice and crispy, and it give it an extra bit of flavour on the edge of the topping. I will show you that when it comes out of the oven in about 30 minutes. So I'll just set Alexa to do another 30 minutes, and then we will be done. See you soon. So this is the meatloaf, the end product, with mashed potato and mixed veg. And as you can see, it's got that lovely glaze on the top, and it's nice and sort of sticky and golden. And we just need to pour a bit of gravy on top. Because whenever I post pictures, people are going, "Where's the gravy? Where's this? Where's that?" So now it's got gravy. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I hope you like the recipe. Bye.